Every now and again I like to show you something a little bit different and something that's not on the radar. In this video we're going to look at Kotanook from ASIO Games. What first attracted me to this one is the artwork. And this is by Jocelyn Bouchard, a Canadian wildlife artist. And it's absolutely wonderful, really pretty. But the game's not going to be as complex as a lot of the other things I show on the channel. But it will be something that I think you can get some joy out of from the artwork and also as a family game. And I think it's always great to show some support for these new upcoming independent game publishers. And it's showing us the world of Kotanook Forest. These are the tokens that you're going to use. Each player is going to take, so there's a player 1 and a player 2, but take one of these deer. And throughout the game, you're going to be trying to score as many life points as you can, and you're going to get awarded bonuses as these deer proceed on their migration around Kotanook Forest. In addition, each player will get 2 predators. Yeah, I love these wolves. We have a cougar, we have a black wolf, a grey wolf, and a grizzly bear. And you're going to determine which predators you get randomly. Now this game doesn't have sophisticated balancing, it's meant to be a little bit of light-hearted fun. So depending on which predators get assigned to you, some are stronger than others. It may well be that you're lucky enough to get the stronger predators. The cougar is stronger and perhaps the other 3 are more equally weighted. But if you get the cougar, then you're going to be at a slight advantage. So we start the game by each player taking 1 deer and 2 predators. The rulebook is primarily French with an English translation. There are a few little issues, but I've put a thread on BoardGameGeek.com where I've asked quite a few questions of the publishers and asked them to clarify some rules, and I'm going to present those to you now in this overview. There's 4 areas of the map. We have Koto Mountain, Tiger Lake, Radisson Camp, and Obesco River. Your deer must follow a migration pattern and visit each one of these 4 spots in each of the corners of the forest. There's squares on the map, and these things are going to move around the map from square to square, orthogonally and diagonally. Some squares are bigger than others, so some terrain is more difficult to move through. And if you can see the artwork and the attention to detail on the map is just splendid. And like I said, this is what's really drawn me here. These 4 corners are called resting zones, and you must visit each one of them at least once during the game. The first player to visit all 4 of these resting zones will conclude the game, and then you count your victory points. And the victory points is the number of life points left amongst your deer and predators. Unrevealed predators count 0, but at some point during the game you can reveal these predators and you can place them on these footprints. We have 1 grey player and 1 green player, which mirrors the colour of each of the deer. So number 2 player, their predators could appear at either these 2 spots or these 2 spots. Okay, so there's 1 spot in each of these 4 regions where these predators can pop up. You've got to decide between you before you begin who's going to be the first player. So let's say whoever gets randomly dealt the number 1 deer might be the first player, and they get to choose one of these resting zones as their starting spot. Let's say he chooses the green resting zone. Now they have to secretly, and I suggest you do this on a piece of paper, say what their migration pattern is going to be. So let's say they decide to go anti-clockwise around the board. You could do this any way you wanted, so you could go green, blue, yellow, red, or green, red, blue, yellow. Let's say they decide to go green, yellow, blue, red. The second player, they've got to put their deer on any one of the 3 remaining spots and also secretly choose their migration pattern. And you've got to stick to that migration pattern, you can't change it throughout the game. Next, each player needs to take the life point cards to represent their deer and their predators. So for the deer, you get 4 cards. the start of the game, the deer has 2 life points and can move 4 spaces. Every time you visit one of these resting spots on your migration route, you gain 1 life point and also your movement goes up. Okay, so you start with 4 and 2 life points, but this can go down. Predators can attack you. But you start the game with 4 movement and 2 life points. So keep these in a stack to represent the health and movement of your deer and also your predators. So let's have a little look. So player 2 gets the cougar and the grizzly. So they grab the life point cards for these 2 predators. And the grizzly starts at 4 life points with a movement of 3. And the cougar starts at 4 life points and a movement of 4. This leaves player 1 with the 2 wolves, the black and the grey. And these both start with 3 life points and 4 movement. Okay, so these predators start the game off the board. Next, the players get to secretly choose the location of their predators. So each player is going to get 4 of these location cards, okay? And these represent each of the 4 locations. And they're secretly going to choose 2 of these cards, right? 1 for each of their predators. And the other 2 are going to get discarded back to the box face down. So let's assume that the player 1 decides to go for Takey Lake and Koto Mountain. Right? We'll discard these 2 and we'll keep these hidden in our hand. And at any point during the game, we can reveal one of these cards. Vous sautez votre prédateur. You're taking your predator out. Place your game piece on the coloured square and start playing. So they would find one of these grey paw marks and place that predator there. So for example, they could reveal Koto Mountain, take the black wolf tile, and this predator would appear here. The thing about these predators is, if they're adjacent to your opponent's deer, or indeed another predator, they can attack them and reduce their life points. So you can see that these deer, they're travelling the board. On your turn, you can move any of your pieces on the board, so your deer or your 2 predators. And your aim is to move them using the move points as listed on your current health. So here it would be 4. So this deer could move 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you could be moving a predator. So this one has a movement of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're adjacent, you can be using these cards here, these action cards, to attack. So for example, if you've got this black wolf in your hand, you can play this card to form 1 attack on this deer. Okay, so these are attack cards, or what the game calls action cards. Alright, so each one of these has a picture of all the different types of animals in the deck. Some of them have 2 heads on, so this, if you play this one, it means that your grizzly will do 2 attacks. Some of them have multiple heads. These are like a wild card, so you can use this to attack with any predator. Alright? But in addition, you use these cards to defend. Each player starts the game with 5 cards. So at the setup, you'll be dealing 5 cards into a hand. So I'll give these a good shuffle. We've chosen our deer starting locations. We've hidden our predators. Player 2 needs to do the same. And we need to draw a starting hand of action cards of 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next, we need to grab these adventure cards. And up until now, everything looks quite straightforward and not too complicated. But what these adventure cards do is they're going to throw in a few spanners and some unpredictable events that are going to occur during the course of the game. All right? And these are the things that can upset the board and turn things around and up the level of excitement. So, for example, this one says your opponent's deer fell in the rocks and is injured. For one turn, the deer will stay in the same place. Hunter on the lookout. All animals in the Obesco River area must move towards Koto Mountain at the locations of your choice. The Obesco River area is closed for one turn. Okay, so there's these stack of adventure cards. And in each game, the players will be given a hand of 5 of these adventure cards each. So this adds a lot of replayability and variability to the game. The others will just go back to the box and won't be used again for the rest of the game. Okay, so each game is limited to just 5 cards. Each player will add these to their hand, and they can play these at any time during their turn, the same as these Predator cards. You'll notice they've got the same backs. So you've got a hand of action cards and a hand of adventure cards and these Predator location cards. The game turn is pretty simple. It looks like this. You've got your action cards. You draw back up to 5. You can discard up to 1. So you can keep the cards in your hand, or you can discard 1 if you wish, and then draw back up to 5 from the draw deck. You can move any or all of your animals, your deer or your predators. So remember, at the start of the game we started with movement of 4. And we're heading towards our migration route. So let's say that player 2 chose yellow, blue, red, green. So they're heading over this way. And we have a movement of 4, so we can start moving towards the Obesco River. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll notice there's kind of a bottleneck here. We've got to look out because there's a predator pool here. So maybe we want to think about revealing one of our predators. Let's reveal the grizzly. So we'll go to our hand and we'll reveal the Obesco River card and we'll place the bear. Now, unfortunately that would have been nice because he was close to the deer, so a little bit of foresight. Radisson Camp might have been better. As it is, Obesco River, the green pool mark is over here, so we'll move the grizzly in here. And we can move the grizzly on the turn we reveal it. He's currently got a movement of 3. In fact, irrespective of his health, his movement's 3. So let's move him 1, 2, 3. Let's keep the cougar hidden for now. We want to keep something as a little bit of surprise for our opponent. The key thing here is that the victory points that we score at the end of the game are equal to the life points of all 3 of our predators, except any that are unrevealed. So we've got to reveal them at before the end of the game at some point, otherwise their life points won't count towards our score. Now we can play adventure cards. We don't have to. We could play 1, any, all, whatever, as we wish. We haven't got anything that's going to help us right now. But notice some of these adventure cards, they look like action cards. They've got these wild cards. So some of these adventure cards will actually give us a bonus in attack and defence as well. Okay, so we can choose to or not play adventure cards, and then the turn just passes to our opponent. Now let's assume that they chose Radisson Camp as one of the locations for their predators. Okay, so we'll put one of the wolves in. This is player 1, they go here. So remember, on their turn, first thing they'll do is, well, they don't need grizzlies or they don't need cougars, so we might want to discard one of these. Let's create a discard pile, because if this should run out, you would reshuffle in the discard pile. Let's draw one more card, and we're looking for something that's a little bit more helpful. Okay, we've got a black wolf. But we've got 2 cards that'll help us. We've got a grey wolf and a wild card. And the grey wolf's health is currently 3 with a movement of 4. Remember, we can do things in any order we wish, so we'll leave our deer there for now. We're going to move our grey wolf 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to cut off the deer. So let me demo now what would happen. So, trying to go for an early lead, the first player will go for an attack. So we'll play 2 cards down. You have to be adjacent. These cards have to match your predator. And that can be adjacent diagonally or orthogonally. And you can only do 1 or 2 attacks per turn. Alright, so we've chosen to attack this deer for 2. Our opponent now checks his hand and is looking for deer. Well, fortunately we've got 2 deer. So we could choose to play 1, none, or both of these. Let's assume the chances are you'll want to play both, but let's assume we only play 1. We're going to keep 1 for next turn, keep it in our back pocket. What that means is we now take 1 damage to our health. So we go to the health of the deer and we move it down to 3. Now if we should take 1 more and our health gets reduced down to 0, then unfortunately the deer goes back to the start and we have to begin our migration all over again. Okay, these get discarded, so they're into the discard pile. We've only got 3 cards now, so next time we could discard 1 and then draw 3 more. For now, let's move our deer. He's got a movement of 4. Remember, he's heading to yellow, Radisson Camp. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we've got a couple of adventure cards here that may help us. We've got this one here, an attack from the predator. If your attack was successful, it was, play this card to be able to attack again without using action cards. And that's pretty cool because that means that next turn we can go in again and attack, right? So some of these adventure cards are more powerful than others and they can really change things up and take your opponent by surprise. I think the only other thing to point out that I've not described, let's say we had the cougar on the map as well, and we could potentially put our cougar into play and have this cougar take on this wolf. So this time you'll be looking to play cougar cards from your hand. We've only got 1 as it goes, but you know we would have drawn up by now. And okay, we're lucky we've got 2. So we could take on the grey wolf 2. Remember, this player hasn't drawn up again, but they've got 1 grey wolf left in their hand against 1. That will damage the grey wolf, and this means he takes 1 health point hit. Okay, if a predator's killed, they're gone for good. They don't respawn like the deer who has to start from the beginning again. But every time you're hitting a predator, you're reducing that player's potential victory points at the end of the game. So that's Kotanook. Wonderful artwork, simple gameplay, plays in about half an hour, but it is limited to just 2 players. So keep an eye out for Ezio Games and we'll see what they come up with in the future. They've got 1 in development now which I'm interested in seeing too. I think it's probably going to feature artwork from the same artist, and it's about the birds of prey of Kotanook. I don't know if it's an expansion or a completely new game. We shall see. Okay, if this one takes your fancy, you can order directly from their website. That's it for now. See you next time.